Hey, today I'm talking about 3 recent true crime documentary miniseries all about cults. And the names of those 3 series are Escaping Twin Flames, Stolen Youth, and The Program. Now, normally I only talk about movies, but I asked one of my dear friends to give me some true crime documentary film recommendations, and she refused to and just gave me a ton of miniseries recommendations. And to be fair to her, all 3 of these miniseries are roughly 3 hours in length, and I've watched plenty of 3-hour-long movies before. Those do exist. So I decided to make an exception just this one time. So you are welcome, Nicole. I hope you enjoy. First up is Escaping Twin Flames. This is a 2023 Netflix documentary, and the basic premise is it is about Twin Flames universe, which is this self-help dating webinar thing. It's sort of like Soulmates but on steroids. There is only one person in the entire world that is your twin flame, and you have to pursue them at all costs. And that includes, like stalking and stuff. And yeah, no, I crazy loved this doc. It was so good. Of the 3 that I'm talking about today, this definitely feels like a miniseries was the correct format, just because it did slowly build and each episode felt unique and it didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome ever. Miniseries was the perfect amount of time for the story that they were telling. I think part of why I enjoyed this one so much was just because it was so easy for me to understand how people could get sucked into this. So many of my friends have been single for such a long time, and so it's understandable that people just get desperate after such a long period of time. They just want answers. And also too, with a part of this is that when people have this instant deep connection with a person, they want to know, does this mean something? Twin Flames universe is something that they would turn to kind of help them understand this intense amount of emotions they're feeling. They want a sign from the universe that it's okay to move fast in this relationship because it feels like it should be moving fast. And this cult provides a reinforcement for that thought. So I get it. It's so easy to get sucked into this stuff. Especially because too, you can just leave whenever you want. It's an online portal. It's a website. It's a bunch of YouTube stuff. All you have to do is just stop going to it. It's not like you're locked in a building or something. It's not like everyone's dressed in robes and whatnot. It doesn't feel like a cult, but it is. Clearly it is. A lot of people that they talk to higher up, so it's people who have really invested time and money into this. So I do think part of it too is the cost sank fallacy of they've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on this, they need something out of it. They can't just walk away from it and admit that this was all just a waste of time and money. And it's so interesting too, how they push pain. You always have to be working on yourself because that's how they make money. So they just really reinforce that. Man, I really truly hated the main leader of the cult. He's just such a piece of shit. You just want to punch him. There's one point where he described forcing his wife to be sexual with him, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, why are you willfully telling other people about you trying to rape your wife? This is so messed up. No, good God. What really got to me though was mostly talked about in the 3rd episode, where they had a problem with their cult was mostly women. So if they want to use their platform as a sort of dating thing, they need to make more men. So they pivoted to forcing people into the incorrect gender identity. Man, that just really truly hurts me. It's weaponizing transness. And this is what crazy right-wing people are afraid of with the trans identity, is that oh, it's not who they actually are. People are just forced into this because cultural pressures or whatever bullshit. But it's no, that's not what being trans is. This is the complete opposite of being trans. Trans is recognizing something within yourself is not the same as what society decrees. Trans is a personal thing. It's not something that is pushed upon you. It made me cry. I was so incredibly saddened by these women being forced into something so fundamentally wrong for themselves. Whereas being trans is about finally getting to be your true self. How liberating and freeing that is. And it's just, God, it hurts. It hurts. But yeah, I also really liked the end. It was just a really big emotional release. It was a lot of apologizing and stuff, and it felt very conclusional. Even though Twin Flames universe is still a thing that's actively going going. It's still happening. Like, these two grifters are still out there just swindling money from people. But even though it's still continuing, the documentary definitely still felt like it came to a natural conclusion. So I really like that. This is just well done. So yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this miniseries and would totally recommend it. It's a fascinating story, told incredibly well. It goes to some great emotional places. It'll make you so infuriated, but also just take you on a great emotional ride. So yeah, no, thoroughly enjoyed, totally recommend. Next up is Stolen Youth. This is a 2023 miniseries about a really strange situation. In the fall of 2010, this group of really good friends in their sophomore year of college all live together in this dorm house, and suddenly one of their dads gets out of prison, and so he just moves in with them, and it was maybe supposed to be a temporary thing, but it just escalated into him just living there, and like, dude's insane. Basically turned the house into like a little mini cult, and it evolved over time. And it's so interesting because like his whole thing is he's trying to help them. He wants them to work through all their emotional pain and stuff. But dude's insane. He's just off the walls crazy. Like, people are always out trying to get him. He's addicted to Adderall. He does just so many like abusive things. One of the early crazy moments is a select few of them move into this other apartment thing. One of them keeps destroying the property of the main guy, and so he has him like make a list of all the things that he destroyed, but he didn't destroy anything. He just, used things normally, and it eventually equated to like this huge list of like everything that's listed in the apartment, and it's like, oh, I need to pay to replace all of these things. And so over the course of time, the dude gives him like $300,000 to replace all of this damaged goods. But like, even though he didn't actually damage anything, he truly believed he had to give this guy all of this money in order to just continue being. And then like his sisters get involved in the cult too, and that's where things get even more crazy. But yeah, I really loved the friend who did not get involved, Raven. She was like such a great voice of reason throughout the whole thing. So I'm so glad I got to hear from her. I also really loved the animation stuff they did, in particular in the beginning. I kind of wish there was a little bit more of it, but I understand like the not having it throughout thing because they did have lots of footage, because dude recorded so much of his abuse. It was insane. The format of this miniseries was interesting because like the first two parts were one continuous story that went through this one emotional arc, and then the third part was definitely disconnected. It was definitely a style shift, because in the third part the documentarians talked to specifically the two members of the cult that they hadn't shown throughout the rest of it, who were in it the longest, to see their perspective on the whole thing. And like, I feel like I have the most criticisms of the third part, but yet at the same time I feel like a lot of my favorite moments and reveals happened in that third part. So I am kind of mixed on how I feel about that third part. I think maybe I wish it would have been more included throughout, because it just feels so disconnected from the rest of it. Or if it would have been like supplementary material, like they released part 1 and part 2 as just a movie, and then this other thing is just like the bonus episode or something. Because I do think what happened in there is definitely without a doubt worth getting to know, because, to spoil it a little bit, one of them is a steadfast member of the cult basically right up until the very end, and then the other one starts off as a very strong member of the cult, and then over the course of that episode she realizes more and more of like, oh no, I need to not be in this, this is so bad. What I found so fascinating with that person too is like, this is one of the few times where I'm like so happy that someone's gaining weight, because dude was insane with food. Like, there was literal locks on fridge doors the entire time because he just had to control when people ate. So a woman was just so incredibly skinny, and then like as she gained her freedom mentally, you see her gain weight, and it's like, oh thank God, she's better, she's so much better. My other criticisms are, I wish we would have heard from his daughter, because I feel like that was a very fundamental part of like even how the guy got into the house in the first place. And I got a little confused because I thought one of the other people was his daughter, so I was like, wait, who is this person? And then there's one who gets into escorting, and I really wish we would have heard from them, because that feels like a very consequential part of the story, and it didn't make up for a lot of the runtime. And the reason it didn't is because we didn't hear from her. Plus, like, there was some litigation stuff happening at the time around that, so that could also be why we didn't get a ton of it. But the story definitely needed that stuff, so I do think it was lacking. That all being said though, I still did thoroughly enjoy this miniseries and would totally recommend it. Like, it definitely hit its emotions well. It definitely was an interesting story. It definitely has room for improvement, but even with that, it still hits you where it needs to. So I would still totally recommend this one. So yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it, and I would totally recommend it. And lastly is The Program. This is a 2023 miniseries about schools designed specifically to handle the bad kids. They're like academies you send your kid away to, and like they're supposed to complete this program, but actually the whole thing is just a ton of abuse and also just a scam to get people's money. Now, the subject matter was definitely really good. Like, what they're talking about is an important thing that we need to talk about because it's still an ongoing issue. These programs exist to today. Not this school because it got shut down a while ago, but like it still is prevalent everywhere. People fall for this shit all the time. And there were definitely some really good emotional moments all throughout this that, you know, definitely struck a hard chord with me. That being said, I think a miniseries was the wrong choice for this story, just because like the structure of the whole thing definitely felt very scatterbrained. It felt like they just needed to fill 3 hours worth of content rather than telling a nice, tight, concise story. Because there really wasn't like an overarching story. It quite literally was a bunch of adults going to this old building, walking around and telling stories of like, this was what happened in this room, this is what happened in this room. It was really all over the place. And yeah, those stories were definitely interesting and fascinating, but there needed to be an arc. It really felt like it came out of the gate at a 10 out of 10 for intensity and never wavered, really. Or like another, for instance, of it being scatterbrained is that as they're walking around this school, we see this group of people talking and stuff, and one of the members of the group, I'm like, who is this person? I don't think we've heard from them yet. We don't know their name or their like little backstory thing. And it's not until the second episode that they're finally introduced, even though they're all throughout the first one, and like they're the only person who's introduced in the second episode who's a part of this group. And like it wasn't even clear to where this story was going. Like it wasn't until halfway through the second episode where we finally got a mission statement. The documentarian's whole intention with this was to gather evidence to show her father for him to finally understand what he put her through. But that really wasn't even the mission statement. Like that kind of was brought up and then we sort of focused on that for a bit, but then it just went away and stopped. When there is finally like the big emotional confrontation with the dad, he's pretty much there already. Like he more or less understands. But like she even says like, this isn't the end of the conversation, but then we don't see any more of the conversation. But he already understands. So yeah, but let me go back to some of the things that I liked. The story of the riot was really interesting. Hearing about all the sexual abuse was heartbreaking. They run into some of the former employees there. One in particular is one of the women in charge of like strip searching people, and whilst describing strip searching, she does a whole bunch of eye wiggles that was incredibly creepy because it was clear that she got sexual kicks out of strip searching teenagers. There's a moment where they confront a pastor about his time there, and that's just hilarious and sad. Same thing with like a phone call that happens with a former employee there. Like that was just kind of jaw-dropping. So like there's definitely really good moments within this. It's just as a whole was bloated and meandering. I think had they cut this into just a nice tight 2-hour film, or maybe even a little bit shorter, it would have been a lot stronger of a project. So I did still like it, and I would recommend it if you've known anyone who went to a program like this, or if it just sounds interesting, yeah, give it a watch. Just be prepared for a little bit of a messy experience, filmmaking wise. But the story in and of itself is worthwhile for sure. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Escaping Twin Flames, sitting at number 7 in the Really Like section. And then after that, not too terribly far behind, is Stolen Youth, sitting at number 11, also in the Really Like section. And then bringing up the rear is The Program, sitting at number 37 in the Liked section. And this is out of a total of 48 old movies so far this year.